Do you guys see a difference? Do you spot an obvious difference? It's pretty subtle. I dyed my hair. Here, let me get into this light that's right in front of my face. Well, that's too bright, you can't see. It's very subtle. I dyed my hair like this auburn, reddish brown color. My hair is otherwise like jet black, as you can see from my eyebrows. Anyway, I wanted to try something different. I did this once last year too. Anyway, guys, this video, I want to talk about the importance of setting boundaries. Historically, and I've talked about this before, I will have the instinct to set a boundary with people, right? Whether it's platonically, romantically, professionally, whatever. But then I oftentimes don't establish boundaries out of, I think, being a people pleaser. Like, I want to be well liked. I want to keep things like, keep the peace with somebody I just met and not like complicate things. But I've noticed that I tend to be right with my instincts that would have otherwise led me to set boundaries. So to be more concrete, let me share this story with you guys. Particularly with social media for me, I'm realizing it's important for me to set boundaries. I think that goes for anybody with social media because it can be such a time sucker and it's like, can be very draining. But it's all about how you use these tools, right? You have to, like I said, like set some guidelines, set some boundaries. And for me especially, that's relevant because I have this channel, I have my music channel, I work in social media, my full-time job and my side business. Every way that I make money in life, like all my different revenue routes are linked to social media. So for me, it's even more relevant to make sure I set boundaries with the effects of social media on my personal life, on my mental health, emotional state, all that stuff, right? So I am now making a conscious effort when I meet somebody new and they ask, the first time I meet them, they ask to exchange social media, I now am setting a boundary like, I'm not willing to do that. I'm not gonna be weird about it. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not on social media, but I would rather turn it around and be like, hey, I actually like don't really dig, Instagram connections, like let's exchange numbers. So I have that instinct, right? And a few times somebody was like, oh, I don't really do that or whatever. And then I'll meet them halfway just to like keep it moving. And we'll exchange social media. And then exactly what I'm afraid of happens, which is I never see them again. Or in some cases, since moving to Miami, it's like I made an effort to be their friend, like invited them to things. They don't really reciprocate or they don't meet me halfway. But then they watch all of my stories. They're posting every 5 minutes. So every time I open Instagram, I'm reminded of this person who's like not relevant to my life in any way. And maybe that's just me being too sensitive to whatever, but I'm going to use social media how I use social media. I only follow people who I actually know. That in like, celebrity accounts or meme accounts or whatever, but I'm not one of those people who uses social media to stay connected to people I met once for 5 minutes. Like, I'm just not interested in that. So fast forward to last week, I met a guy. We had a 2-hour long conversation. It was easy, it was organic. And it was one of those moments where I was like, this is different. I felt a spark. I felt a compatibility that with a guy that I honestly haven't felt in years. Like, it was just the perfect fit. And he vocalized the same thing. We were on the same page. And he said, I want to stay in contact. I'm very busy. I work all the time, workaholic, blah, blah, blah. But we will talk again. We will connect again. Let's exchange social media. Or first he asked for Snapchat. I said, I don't have Snapchat. He said, you have Instagram. I said, I do have Instagram, but I would much prefer connecting the old school way. Take my number. We'll talk, whenever you're free, whatever. And he was like, hey, I don't like to do that because I've had some bad experiences in the past with like stalker energy. I would feel more comfortable through Instagram, staying connected. So it's interesting because in that moment, I should have, in retrospect, right? I should have had a little red flag go off that's like, okay, so he's setting a boundary that he wants me to abide by, but he's refusing to respect my boundary. And instead, because I was so into this guy and I just wanted to keep it moving and not be difficult as a person, especially with somebody I'm trying to get to know, I obliged and I did what he wanted. And I ended up giving him my social media, my Instagram. But I told him, I said, just so you know, I the reason I don't like to do this is because then sometimes you don't talk to the person ever again, and yet you see them every 5 minutes on Instagram and you see what they had for breakfast. You know where they're going this weekend. You know what their thoughts are on, Trump's latest tweet or global warming, and it's just like, it's stimulation overload. Like I don't care to be that involved with somebody I just met. So at least I was honest and I put that out there, and he was like, oh, really? Like, oh, okay, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But no, like, we'll stay in touch, whatever. Exactly what I feared would happen happened. The night that we exchanged information, a few hours later, I reached out and I said, hey, it was really nice meeting you. Looking forward to connecting again soon. And he left me on read. He never responded, but he watches every single one of my stories since then. And now I'm just turned off. Like, this guy that I was really into, I'm turned off that he wasn't thoughtful enough to meet me halfway and like respond to my message. And now, unfortunately, it's not just like something left in the past. I'm reminded of him every time I open Instagram, because he watches every story and he's constantly posting stories as well. So he always comes up like, when you just follow somebody, Instagram will like promote them to you to like throw them into the algorithm. So now I'm like planning to unfollow him, but I'm trying to time it right so that it doesn't feel petty or like, because this was only a week ago. But now I'm annoyed that I even have to deal with this process of like, oh, this is exactly what I thought would happen. I tried to set a boundary, and now if he realizes that I unfollowed him because I've lost all interest, he's going to think I'm really petty. The kind of guy I want to attract would not only, after a 2-hour conversation out of the blue with a total stranger, would not only reach out to me proactively to say it was nice meeting you, but would at least have the decency to respond to that message and not leave me on read. So for those of you who are like, wow, you're too judgy or whatever, I get it. I get what you're saying, but this is to me about setting boundaries. And at this stage in my life, now that I'm entering my 30s, like, this isn't the kind of energy I want to attract. And in retrospect, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, I don't even want to attract somebody who's afraid to exchange phone numbers. I think I've normalized that because I've met so many guys like him before. They're like, oh, I don't really feel comfortable with that. I've had bad experiences. And this is something I struggle with, like being empathetic and open versus, again, setting your own boundaries. Like, cool, that's your boundary. Okay, but here are my boundaries. I also have a way that I want to establish connections in my life, right? So the lesson for me here is trust your instincts and set your boundaries. If this is something that matters to you, just do it. Nobody can tell you how you should or should not use social media. Nobody can tell you how you should or should not like feel comfortable interacting with people. And I have my moments where I want to get rid of Instagram. I want to delete it, but I can't because I use it for work. Like it's not feasible for me to get rid of social media. So as long as I have it, that means I have to use it in a way that feels right for me. And I don't want to see, a guy every time I open it who disappointed me, or a guy who I went on a date with 5 years ago who like flaked on me, but now he watches every single one of my stories. Set your boundaries and stick to them. That's the goal. That's a good way to start 2022. Set boundaries with people and stick to them.